Okay, so delighted to be joined, although not in person because we're not in Bordeaux, by Louis Mitjavile, who's in Castillon at L Aurage as we speak. And normally we would have tasted the wine about a month ago, but of course with all the restrictions, it's not possible. But it's brilliant to be with you virtually, Louis. And so I was wondering if you could, say a little bit about L Aurage, but of course, describe the 2019 growing season at your property.
Okay, let's talk about 2019. First, I'd like to say that it's an amazing and strange vintage. And we still try to understand how it was by tasting the wine day after day. Just a quick resume of the season. After a mild and wet winter, we had a pretty dry and hot year. The ripeness was slow, difficult, and long. By August, beginning of September, we had some very, very small berries, very concentrated. And it looks like the vines probably suffer a little bit to get ripe. As we approach the harvest, we had some rain about mid-September, and thanks to these rains, they probably softened the grapes. You know, it's not like a dilution, but they softened the grapes, they softened the tannins. We need to understand that sometimes when the weather is too dry and too hot, it's not the year where we make the best wine. So we were pretty happy at the beginning with these rains. Of course, we would probably have preferred that they stopped earlier, but they keep going a little bit too long. And for L Aurage, we start the harvest on the 3rd of October. Just at the evening, just to make sure that all the equipments and everything was set in the cellar, and we continued the next day on the 4th of September, and we finished by the evening on the next day. So between the beginning and the end of the harvest, it's like 26, 28 hours, and it's a very important decision. You know that at L Aurage we harvest by machine. It's my decision from the beginning, and I assume it completely. It's because I prefer to have this possibility of harvesting in a very, very quick way. I think it's good to improve the quality of the grapes in spite of harvesting by hand and take maybe 4 or 5 more days. So I have the opportunity at L Aurage to harvest as soon as possible and to make it this quick. So that's great. That's great. But it was one of the key. Sorry, it was one of the key in 2019. So wait as long as possible, and then when we think we are at the maximum potential of the harvest, make it quick.
Okay, and is that the quickest you have ever done? I mean, is there another year where you've maybe harvested in 1 or 2 days like that?
Yeah, it's the quickest. Actually, we harvest with 3 machines, harvesting machines. A 4th machine was ready to go if we wanted. The last vintages like that was 2012, but for different reasons. Okay, it's difficult to compare 2012 and 2019 on the general style of the wines, but it's probably the last vintages we had to harvest that fast.
Okay, now that makes very good sense, and then it gives you the control, which I guess is a real asset.
I'm lucky. We have entrepreneurs here who can, they can arrive from almost day to day and start the harvest, and they can give me 3, 4, 5 machines if I like. So that's a good thing.
Okay, brilliant. And how? What's that resulted in terms of how you would describe the wine at the moment?
Once again, 2019 is amazing. It's amazing. It's not the pure expression of a warm and dry vintage as we had actually. It's not a massive wine. It's not nor a weak wine. It's probably between the classic and Mediterranean vintages. It's a wine with I can say vibrant fruits, round and soft texture, and it's actually we can say that 2019 is kind of is the charm of a mysterious vintage, because it's very difficult to how can I say it in English, uh, to understand completely the vintage, the characteristic of the vintage by tasting the wine right now. I mean, we still have some things to discover and to develop in the Elevage.
Yeah.
I don't know if you understand, but if it's
yeah, no, that's good. And both Adam, myself, Guy, and Joe tasted last week from the sample.
Right.
And yeah, it's an impressive wine, and it has a lovely density and richness, but it has and freshness is an overused word, I think, now, but it does have it dances quite lightly despite having a good richness to it.
Yeah, that's interesting because we are close to 14.5, 15 alcohol. The pH is pretty low. It's not a low pH, so the acidity is not very high. But you have this freshness, this finesse, this. Once again, it's very new for us. Very new.
Yeah, but if I might say, that's a little bit of Mitjavile magic to a degree, because this having freshness whilst having richness and not masses of acidity is quite a characteristic of yours and your sister and father's wines.
Absolutely, that's almost the paradox of our wines, of rich, dense Bordeaux wines with this grace, ripeness, richness, low acidity, but still this freshness. Even it's not the case in 2019, but even when sometimes we have this, what we used to say in French, this fruit confit, even at that level of little over ripeness, the balance is there. It's well balanced, it's fresh, and it's that's probably the most difficult things to build and to develop. But it's a so wonderful and so exciting result.
Okay, yeah, no, that's brilliant. And if whilst you mentioned Bordeaux as a style, if I might ask a sort of slightly more general question about Bordeaux, although it doesn't necessarily apply to your properties because your pricing has been very consistent over the years rather than, dare I say it, the more up and down of Bordeaux. But with there having been a long run from 2010 onwards of good vintages, really, particularly 2014 onwards, do you see that this the COVID sort of pandemic offers Bordeaux a chance to really re-engage with its market in terms of its pricing generally?
I will try to talk a little bit about Bordeaux in general, even if I follow more our domains, our Mitjavile domains. But I don't think that there is some things to do with a good or bad series of good vintages. We could had this discussion in 2007 or 2008, back in 2000, in different occasions. That's the problem. That's the good thing and the bad thing with the Primeur and with Bordeaux. It's like this. I don't know how people can handle this. As you mentioned, our wines, especially L'Aurage and our Mitjavile wines, we pay a lot of attention of the fact that our prices are very regular. We don't like to go up and down. If I give you a quick example of L'Aurage, first vintage, we start in 2007. And if we go from 2007 to 2019, so it's 12 years, the difference of price, it's about maximum 17-18% on 12 years. So it's really, really regular, and it's but the problem also is I cannot compare our wines and L'Aurage with other Bordeaux wines, not all of them or most of them, because it's also a question of strategy and how you build and develop your market. For example, you know that L'Aurage is exclusive in UK with Corny and Barrow. So it means that for the primeur, it's much easier for me to talk about you and to set the distribution and to talk about prices. And I mean, we are very confident, and we can talk together about it. So it's really something very, very different. So it's, for me, it's not that I'm not concerned about Bordeaux in general. Of course I am, but we are a little bit different. I think you need to know your market. You need to know, your market is the wines are well distributed, if the price is appropriate, and you put everything together.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good. Well, I completely agree. I think it is a matter of a slightly different model, and that makes very good sense.
The first question to me is, what is the fundamental question of the primeur is, what are they for? What are the primeur for? And the primeur is to find wines that you cannot find later. You're sure that you can get it, and probably get wines at more accessible prices. And of course, if you see that between the primeur and the wine in bottle, the available wines, if there is 20-25% difference, okay, I mean, it's very exciting for the private customers. If it's not,
yeah, exactly. People want some reward or reassurance or advantage in buying early, not to make lots of money, but to feel smart and to feel they got that they have supported the winery and the merchant by paying for the wine early. Then you get something in return. So yeah,
yeah, to make your customers very confident. A lot of vintages of L'Aurage, even if the domain is very recent, are not available on the market, and they are not available even at the property. I mean, we don't have some 2015, some 2017, some 12, some 11, some 9, 10. So, I mean, I still feel that the primeur L'Aurage en primeur is pretty exciting.
Good. Yeah, no, and likewise, so do I. I mean, also, before I was going to ask where 19 ranks amongst your vintages, I think, but also at the same time as where it ranks, what other vintage of yours are you particularly, however young, what particular vintage of yours are you enjoying drinking the most at the moment?
Most of the time, we focus on the last vintage. So I would say, especially during this time, this surprise time. I mean, it's 2019. We are tasting it, we are trying it. I mean, there is still a lot of work to do on it. L'Aurage is 10 years of wines in bottles. It's not a long history. So I like to go from a vintage to another. It depends more about on my mood. If I prefer, tender vintage like 2007 or something, maybe a dancer like 2015 or 16. Actually, I didn't taste the 2013 for quite a while, probably because of the general reputation of the vintage, and I was very happy to taste it. And we are talking a lot about it. We are selling a lot of 2017 right now. It's showing really well. So it depends. Really, it depends. But I need to taste almost all of them, pretty so often.
And so to go to the last question, and it's a slightly unfair question to ask of a proprietor, but where do you feel the 19 rates, but in the run of sort of 14 to 19, one of the best of the vintages, or?
Oh, you talk in pure quality?
Yeah. It's an overly simple question, but
it's a little too early to talk about it. But it's difficult. You know that at L'Aurage we change our cellars. We improve the quality of temperature, humidity, all the conditions of élevage not a long time ago, and it's pretty recent. It's like 3 or 4 years ago. So all the last vintages had the benefit of that, and it's not that I put everything on the technical part. Of course, we are working a lot on the vineyard, but all together, I mean, we really do improve the quality of the wines. So the last vintages of L'Aurage, in general, are I don't know in English, très abouti. I don't know to translate, but probably 2019 is very close to the 2018, 2016. Not in terms of style, of course, but in pure quality, in rank, probably close to that. Even maybe better, and maybe probably on the top. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, that's brilliant. And Louis, thank you very much for your time and your words about the wine. And we look forward, we think, to releasing next week, which will be last week of May. We're hoping. And I have one last thing to inform you of, because for those who are watching, every year I take. So, Louis, I have a Sancho Panza Non Plus for you this year. Every year I bring you a cigar, and so I will. Next time I see you in Bordeaux, hopefully in, I don't know, who knows, maybe September or something, or before if possible, then that's your cigar when I come.
Okay, with pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Louis. Okay, take care.
Thank you.